Hello everybody, today we're going to be trying out IbisPaint for the first time. I just wanted to try something new, have a little bit of excitement in my life. And of course, downloading a new drawing app is just the right amount of excitement for me. So here we are. The first thing I did was just read the pop-ups that were coming up. And that was helpful at first, but I got over it pretty quickly. And then I just started to touch all the buttons and investigate and just figuring out how things worked. As for the drawing that I'm doing here, don't get too attached to it because I changed a pose halfway through because I had such a hard time getting this pose. Well, I didn't have a hard time. I couldn't do it. I couldn't fit both of their heads into the picture. I wanted there to be the one character poking the other character's cheeks, but I couldn't fit both of their heads in the picture in that pose because one of the heads would have covered the other head, and that would beat the whole purpose of the whole thing. So I gave up. I stopped trying, and I had to do a different pose because I was driving myself crazy trying to figure this out, and it was not going to work. So yeah, my skills were just not good enough. And then I went on to do a different pose and a whole different thing. But back to the drawing app, I decided to, as you can see, dive in head first. And that's pretty difficult because you're trying to figure out how the brushes work and where everything is and what you can do and what are the limitations of the program. And it's a lot at once, you have to figure everything out at once if you want the drawing to work. But when I started trying to learn digital art, back when I was a wee child, I don't know where that was going, but when I was younger, back in my day, I started on GIMP, and that program is horrible for drawing, much like Photoshop. Sorry, I will never give up the opportunity to take a dig at Photoshop. Anyways, when I started on GIMP, it was pretty difficult to figure out everything at once. So what I did was actually coloring pages. I would just import line art that I found on Google. That wasn't mine, that I wouldn't post online. Please don't do that. And then I would try to color it, and that would help me figure out layer modes and figure out what layers were, and trying to color under the line art and trying to use gradients and make the coloring nice, and figuring out where all the different tools were in the program. And that was a really great way for me to learn. And maybe I should have done that this time. I guess I got a little overconfident. The thing I had the hardest time with in this drawing was probably the brushes. Finding ones that I liked was a little difficult. Also, I could not for the life of me find the stabilizer. I was trying to figure it out for way too long, and then 10 minutes after I found it, a little blue pop-up comes up being like, hey, here's a stabilizer if you need it. That was, it was great, thanks. You're 10 minutes too late, but thanks anyway, It was that kind of feeling. Anyway, moving on from that though, finding brushes that I liked in general was actually pretty difficult. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but I think at first it was difficult just because I was trying to only use the brushes that were given and not watch any ads for like extra brushes. But then I gave up on that because, you know me, I just love lowering the standards. And I mean, why make my life more difficult than it has to be, right? I was already trying out a new program, which that didn't work out either, but we'll get to that. Wow, the plot twists. This is like watching a K-drama. Riveting. Anyway, I gave up and watched the ads, and the line art pen was so good. I love that line art pen, and I went back to Procreate trying to figure out if there was anything similar to it. And there's like similar stuff, but like no, this was it for me. That was the line art pen for me. And I don't know how to get it back on Procreate. Anyway, overall, I think the ad system wasn't actually so bad. Like, if it helps to keep the app free, then I'm all for it. And I didn't think they were like super, you know, in the way, so it wasn't that bad. But getting back to the actual drawing that I'm doing right now, and not the other one that I gave up on. The drawing that I did is two characters, the two main characters from a drama called King the Land on Netflix. It's a K-drama. And I haven't watched the whole thing. I've only seen like I've seen like 3 episodes. I'm still waiting for the story to pick up, so I can't like comment on it yet. But so far it's a good rom-com, you know. I'm mostly there because I like the two leads, you know, but it is what it is. Anyway, I decided to draw a scene from the K-drama where like the main two leads are like riding a bike basically into the sunset. And I changed the expressions a bit, and, you know, I moved them around a bit so that it was like better for the drawing. But for the most part, I stuck to the reference, which is actually something I want to practice. I tend to very much just draw references in my style, and I just have fun doing that. I don't know why. Like, I just like interpreting other people's art in my own way. It's fun for me. But I also like kind of want to get better at just drawing from my head or putting multiple references together to make something entirely different and new. And, you know, not just drawing things in my style or interpreting things in my style, you know, the style I don't have. At this point, I decided to fix the perspective a little bit, and it's basically where I put the eyes, basically where there's like the little indent for the cheek, and that really helped me to place the eyes properly, and then of course also place the eyebrows. Again, line art is not the time to be fixing all your anatomical mistakes, but that is a rule that I follow usually. It's like the little indent is where I put the eyes. And so I went ahead and fixed that before I moved on to coloring. But yeah, I would like to get better at just being more original. That's something I'm working on. Now we are getting into the coloring section, and you would think that, you know, everything would be smooth sailing from here on out. But if you thought that, you would be wrong. This is where everything in this drawing started to go wrong. Maybe it's because I was running out of stamina or something. I would rather blame it on the or something, but you know, either one could be. The first thing that went wrong was I did the whole coloring of the flats, this whole section, and I forgot to record it. So I went ahead and undid the whole thing and colored it a second time so that I could record it. And no, you didn't ask me to do it all over again so that I could record it, but I did. So you're welcome. Also, because of whatever reason, definitely not my stamina, I got really frustrated at this point because I would accidentally keep activating the color picker tool when I didn't want to do it, and then when I wanted to activate the color picking tool, it wouldn't do it. It was so frustrating. And I have the same problem in Procreate, but that's by choice. I somehow could not figure out how to lower the sensitivity of the color picker tool, and it was really starting to get to me at this point. I'm sure there's a way to fix it. I'm still trying to figure that out. Please send help. And then the last thing that was really going wrong was the brushes. This was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I could just not find a brush that I liked when it came to like doing the shadows and all the more detailed stuff. I felt like I didn't have a lot of control, and it was pretty frustrating. So at this point, I was attached to the drawing. I wasn't gonna do something else, and I was not willing to give up, so I finished the whole thing, and that's what you're seeing right now. But I was really not happy with it, so I took it into Procreate. Like, I took the line art into Procreate, and then I colored it a third time. Yeah. Does that defeat the whole purpose of this whole thing? Maybe. But was there a purpose to begin with? Is there a purpose to life anyway? Yeah, and you'll get to see that drawing at the end. I'll put a little bit of footage of me coloring that one. But yeah, this is what happens when you get weirdly attached to your drawings. Does this mean I didn't like IbisPaint though? No. It was actually pretty good. It was frustrating that I didn't know how to use it, and it was very, very frustrating at some points. But I'm glad I tried it. You know, it never hurts to know how to use another art program, right? And it wasn't that bad. It had some pretty great tools, actually, especially the circle ruler. That was great. It was perfect for making the wheels of the bike. And they have a tool that lets you expand a few pixels, like expand a selection by a few pixels, which Procreate does not have. Just pointing that out. And you have to do a workaround that I didn't know how to do until a few days ago. So props to them for that one. They also had some manga panel tools that I didn't get to try out, but I definitely want to try out next time. So they had a lot of things going for them. The thing that I didn't love, for the most part, was the interface. Like the look and the position of the buttons was not my favorite. like the add layer and delete layer buttons were in different like spots in different sections, and just my tiny brain could not compute. I was also so used to just using Procreate that I kept reaching for things that weren't there. You know, like when you're trying to draw in a sketchbook and you keep trying to undo, kind of like that. But overall, I had a really good experience with the app, and I definitely think if I wasn't so frustrated with having to like redo things over and over, I would have been a little bit more patient and figured out what brushes worked for me and how to use things properly, and I think it would have been a better drawing in the end. But I do think it's a good app, you know, especially since it's free, and even if you already know Procreate, you can just have both. Speaking of Procreate, this is the drawing that I made. In Procreate, I basically did the same thing. I just went ahead and did a really cool sun shadow effect. Was it worth it? Yeah, of course it was worth it. Coloring the whole thing for a third time. I'm definitely not crying. And if I were, they'd be tears of joy, because this drawing was just so good. Anyway, here's the drawing that I did. I even added a little railing in the background. Yeah, that's it. Bye.